Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare. Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
the sound? Feedback? I'm sure you can do something. Shut it off. Oh, Krishna. This hasn't been a good start so far. I'm late. You've been having a nice time leading kirtan for an extra 22 minutes. Yeah. And you're a mridanga player. You're having a good time playing mridanga. Should we just have kirtan instead of the class? You? Wouldn't be a bad idea, right? Okay.
He has to move front because...
Go, Carla. Go. Thank you very much. Haribol, 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 Haribol. Krishna, Krishna. There's some people that are over, they're not even in the balcony, they're just like out of the bleacher seats. If we could move forward a little bit, especially on the men's side, it could look like there's more room. And then the ladies can scoot over there because there's more ladies than men this evening, so that those ladies over there can see the screen and Compassion Part 2. In the class, let me offer obeisances to Prabhupada first. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sanyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I was very surprised when we boarded the plane in California. They said, right now it's 95 degrees in Chicago. And at night, where I was staying in Silicon Valley, in the morning it was 56 degrees. In the morning. And this morning it was 76 degrees before even the sun came up. Better in Chicago, right? Sometimes. Better than California weather? Sometimes. And sometimes not, too. Depends if you're a polar bear. And it's nice. Okay, Compassion Part 2. So yesterday, there was a big swiftly covering many nice examples from Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita about the compassion of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the compassion of Krishna and Krishna's devotees. There's a wonderful pastime with the Lord Chaitanya we didn't even cover. Curing of the leper Vasudeva, Krishna changing the heart of Amoga. Many nice pastimes. So the personality of Godhead through his potencies can and does change the hearts of many. And then comes this discussion. There's our modern life that's not just a Bhagavatam story, it's what we live every day, and how to exercise that principle of compassion in our everyday life. Good question. I included here the image of a lotus because commonly one of the symbols of peace, tranquility, and compassion is a lotus, one of the emblems carried by the goddess of fortune. It's a lotus flower because she gives that tranquility and peace and exhibits her compassion to others. So here's some dictionary definitions of compassion. Now, a parent to a child is a very natural feeling of one who's dependent and being happy in that feeling of dependency and happy in being the extender of protection and well-being to that dependent. But a dictionary definition of compassion is, very simply, the quality of understanding the suffering of others and wanting to do something about it. Vyasadeva felt compassionate because Vyasadeva is a Vaishnava. Of course, he's the personality of God or his incarnation. But he is Trikalagya, meaning Trikalagya. Kala means time, Kala. Trikala, three mentions of time, past, present, future. Trikala, Gya. He could see past, present, and future. Most of us can't see even present. But he can, and he can see the future perfectly. And he looked into the future, and he saw what happens after Krishna's departure, Kali Yuga. And he knew what that meant. He saw what that meant. So he felt compassion. He wanted to do something. And so what he did was he compiled the Vedas, knowing that the foundational principle of the suffering of others has to do with ignorance. If you're a Buddhist, you have a different idea. You know what the Buddhist idea is? The root cause of suffering is? Yes, you heard. So, the root cause of suffering is desire. So if you want to become free from suffering, become free from desire. How do you become free from desire? Well, if you're Buddhist, you have this following idea, keeping it really simple. You mold your life in the quality of goodness, starting with nonviolence or compassion to others. And truthfulness, cleanliness, mode of goodness. And you live your life in the quality of goodness. Simplicity, austerity, truthfulness, compassion. Don't cause pain and suffering to others. Ahimsa, an important Buddhist principle, which we also accept. And then the second is, live your life as you're living your life in the quality of goodness. That's the incubation chamber. Then you fix your mind in the moment, because this is a Buddhist teaching that I learned from Tattva Sandarbha of Jiva Goswami. He writes in Tattva Sandarbha that the Buddhists have the idea that there's only one reality, or tattva, or state of consciousness, and that's Kshanik Vijnanavad. Vijnana in Buddhist terminology means consciousness. Vijnana in our terminology means realized knowledge. Jnana vijnanam astikyam. Jnana theoretical, vijnana practical, astikyam. So, in Buddhist language, in his writings, I haven't read Buddhist writings, but I read Jiva Goswami's. Kshanik is a phrase that if you read in the Bhagavatam, 4th canto, divisions of time by the atom, a little technical, but besides a second, which makes up minutes, which makes up hours, which makes up days, and so forth, there's divisions of the second. And less than a second, less than a moment, less than a blink of an eye, that's the vernacular. So how long does it take to blink the eye? That's one kshanik. Kshanik vijnanavad. Consciousness is momentary. So, if you're a Buddhist, you practice life of goodness, starting with ahimsa and everything else that goes with goodness, and be in the moment. Mindfulness in modern language. Mindfulness. And when you become very practiced, you become a really superlative Buddhist. You're in the moment, you're in the moment, you're in the moment. You don't deviate from the moment because you're a good Buddhist, you're in the moment. And then what happens? Fasten your seatbelt. You go on the other side of the moment. What's on the other side of the moment? Nirvana. What's nirvana? It's enlightenment. Nirvana, cessation of material existence. When you cease material existence, what's left? Nirvana. Or void. Yummy. Nothingness. This is somethingness that's just illusion. And then on the other side of illusion is reality, which is nothingness. Welcome to Buddha realization. So we'll back up. The root cause of suffering, if the vision, since Buddhists have the vision, the root cause of suffering is desire. Become free from desire. A and B. And then when you're free from desire, that's enlightenment. It's voidism. And you're supposed to want to go there because you don't want to suffer. So what's the alternative to suffering? Nothing. Nothingness. But Vyasadeva doesn't have that idea, and the Vedas don't have that idea, and Vaishnavas don't have that idea. The root cause of suffering is ignorance. Because when the living entity ignores who they really are and the source from which they have come, that's the root ignorance. And from that root ignorance comes little baby ignorances. And so when there's ignorance, then you have ignorant desire, because desire is of the soul. Why is desire of the soul? I want to be desireless. No, you can't be desireless. There's no such thing. Because eternally you're part of the Supreme. So you can try to anesthetize who you really are, and that's nirvana. Because it's not who you really are. Desire is of the soul. It's a lesson in Buddhism and Vaishnavism. So when you have ignorant desire, then you have ignorant activity. When you have ignorant activity, you have suffering. So the root problem is not to become desireless, but to become free from ignorance. And the light cures ignorance, darkness of ignorance. Om ajnana timirandasya Gyananjana salakaya chakshodamiritam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I looked it up one time. What's a shalaka? A shalaka is an instrument that In Ayurveda, it's used to remove a cataract. Shalaka is an instrument to remove a cataract. So Ayurveda knew about cataracts. It's not only modern medicine. And they had a procedure for removing cataracts by shalaka. So shalakaya. So the relationship with a spiritual master serves like a shalaka, serves to remove a cataract. So with the cataract you can't see properly. You can see, but you can't see properly. There's some light that comes in, but it's all distorted. You remove the cataract and then you can see. So association with the spiritual master, the function or the association with the Vedas, and to receive the Vedas through the medium the Vedas are meant to be received, removes that ignorance. At least the potential is there. And therefore we offer our respectful obeisances to the spiritual master, because the spiritual master is just a representative of Krishna through disciplic succession, and Krishna is giving knowledge through the Vedas and through the medium of the spiritual master. So that's Vyasadev's compassion. And the same principle that applied for Vyasadeva applies to all of us. It's receive knowledge so we're not in darkness, and then distribute that knowledge out of compassion. Here's another definition: a deep awareness and sympathy of another's suffering. So we can be deeply aware of another's suffering if we just tune into what our suffering is, instead of thinking material life is not a place of suffering, to have not a morbid idea, but a realistic idea of what real suffering is and what real suffering isn't. And material life isn't. It's a covering of what real life is. There's transcendental compassion and there's mundane compassion. The mundane compassion is a reflection. Material life is a reflection of the real thing. Like the banyan tree example, Bhagavad Gita, where the branches grow up and the root goes down, that's normal. But in the reflection, the branches grow down and the root goes up. No such tree. No such tree. But in reflection, the branches grow down and the root goes up. This place is a place of a reflection of the reality. So there's compassion here because there's compassion there. But it's misplaced. It's upside down compassion. There's no harm in doing things that are with the intention. We're going to touch on it in this presentation. You can do things with the intention to be beneficial for others. I'm going to say it ahead of time. There's a picture of a kitty cat. And where I grew up in upstate New York, it was in a region near, some of you may know New York State geography, near Syracuse. Not really near, but near enough that's like that, near Syracuse. And in the right smack in the middle of New York State, there's Finger Lakes. And I grew up on one of those Finger Lakes. And in the summer season, there's a period of time, like, 3-4 weeks, there's like a zillion mosquitoes. So one time, my parents made a mistake, and I was part of that mistake. They sent me into the garage to remove all the mosquitoes. And I saw there was mosquitoes bugging our kitty cat, so I sprayed the kitty cat. Right? Should be kitty cat, shouldn't be bugged by bugs. And in the morning, the kitty cat was dead in the garage floor. And I realized misplaced compassion. There's many steps. Should my parents have been giving me black flag to begin with? But that was another ignorance. And so the kitty cat died because I was being compassionate. The intended compassion can be misdirected, the reflection kind. And the reality kind is the reality. It's not misplaced. It can't be misdirected because it's the reality. So I'm making a distinction, the title of Compassion, Modern Contemporary Life. You have to know what real compassion is. There's the principle, here's one, awareness and sympathy for another's suffering. But what are you going to do if you don't know what the cause of their suffering? Compassion is a quality. It's something that you feel in the core, and that's something that you care and you want to do. So it's three things. Here's a little chart that shows the same thing. This I got from a TED Talk by this gentleman whose name is in the lower left corner, Chad Ming Tan. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it. Everyday Compassion at Google. And he was promoting Google, but he was promoting why is Google successful, at least in his idea of why Google is successful, because it's based on the principles of compassion. So there's an affective part of compassion, there's a cognitive part of compassion, and there's the motivational part of compassion. And he said, that's the motto or the brand or the mission statement of Google. They want to do things for people out of these three principles. And he said, this is very similar to Buddhism. There's the two top ones are humility, and the bottom one is ambition. You want to do something. So that was his explanation of Google is a replica, is a reflection of Buddhism in the sense that it does these three things. Humility and ambition, of course, doesn't mention profit as one of the ambitions, but wanting to do something by knowing the needs of another person. Anyway, if you want to go to a TED Talk, it's a nice TED Talk. He's referencing this principle of good to great. I won't go, but it's a contemporary society, so there's this motivational speaker named Jim Collins, and Jim Collins speaks about and writes about how Google became great, from good to great. And what made Google good to great was these three principles. They were actually moved by compassion. Not sure I accept that they were moved by compassion and not profit. But he said, his point is many persons are moved by profit, but one became great. So why, what made them great? They had a mission statement that that's what they wanted to do. Not just profit, but compassion. Compassion in contemporary society is our topic. So here's a well-known verse from Bhagavad Gita. We can say the verse together, especially if you're looking at the screen. Tesham evanukam partham aham agyanajam tamaha nashayam yatma bhavasto jnanadipena bhasvata. Jnanadipa, knowledge, the light of knowledge. And the light of knowledge deals with the ajnana ja. Ajnana is ignorance, and jnana is the opposite. There's jnana dipena, and there's ajnana jam, or that which is aham ajnana jam tamaha. Knowledge, ajnana, ignorance, it gives rise through tamaha, through darkness, to suffering. And the end of the first line is akampa artam. Akampa. I heard your brother giving a nice class. You heard the class? I heard that. I heard the class 6 times. It was a good class. 6 times. And he was speaking about mercy, and he said there are different words for mercy and listed some. And the one he likes the most is akampa. Akampa has 2 parts. Is kampa, I'm not a Sanskritist, but I know what he said. It means to tremble. So I've looked it up, and kampa, look it up, it means to tremble or shake. And Krishna, anu means to follow. He shakes with those who are trembling. That's Krishna. That's Krishna's compassion, to show special mercy. Tesham, unto those who, eva, certainly, eva anukampartam, tam aham agyanacham. So Krishna not only is cognizant of our suffering, but he as we're trembling, different causes are there for trembling, but one of them is one is terribly suffering, or fearful, or trembling, like involuntary trembling. The whole nervous system is shot and shaking, and Krishna sees that the cause of it is ignorance, and unto those persons, Krishna is feeling something, and he does something, same, cognitive and motivational. He gives transcendental knowledge. He trembles with. So, another thing your brother said, the word compassion comes from a Latin word, passio, which means suffering, and then passio means with. Suffering with. Krishna suffers with. I mean, a real compassionate person from their heart. So how do you have compassion in contemporary life when there's so much suffering going on all over the place? And you got to do something. But what's the root cause behind the something, behind the suffering? If it's just on the material, if it's just the shadow side, then you're not going to touch the cause of the suffering. And there's a way to touch the cause of the suffering, and that's ignorance. So how you administer ignorance, it's like yesterday evening, Prabhupada saying, in writing on the Jaladuta, how am I supposed to do this? People deep in ignorance and passion, how are they going to understand the message of transcendence? Mission impossible. But you brought me here. You must have your purpose, so if you want me to dance, then let me dance as you like. Dance meaning give knowledge where people have their eyes closed and don't want their eyes to open. Here's some contemporary persons that have trying to take a look at what the root essence of real compassion is. Here's Albert Einstein and his idea of compassion, one of his ideas. Our task must be to free ourselves by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature and its beauty. So we recognize Albert Einstein. Here's Dalai Lama, what he has to say about compassion. If you want others to be happy, practice compassion. If you want to be happy, practice compassion. Of course, you have to know what compassion is. And you have to know what suffering is. You have to know what reality is. You have to know what illusion is. You have to know the real thing. That's a good start, to know the real thing. Knowledge and ritual without compassion is empty, Christ saying, which is true. Here's Vyasadeva. Great philanthropic souls travel on earth on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead to show compassion to the fallen souls who are averse to the sense of subordination to the Lord. That's the mama ignorance is ignoring Krishna. And from the mama ignorance comes little baby ignorances. So many different varieties of ignoring the source. from which we have come and where our real happiness lies. And subordination to the Supreme Lord is the cause of the suffering, and the great philanthropic souls know that, so they do what they do in different ways, like we heard about how Narada helped Magari get to the place of compassion. He was very clever, very innovative. Of course, he's Narada Muni, we can't do that. We can't just go imitate Narada Muni. But he had the wisdom and the capacity. Here's Krishna to Arjuna. Well, it's actually, it's from Srimad Bhagavatam. Showing compassion to all living entities, you will attain self-realization. Giving assurance of safety to all, you will perceive your own self as well as the universe is in me and myself in you. It's Kapila Dev to Devahuti, Bhagavatam. The wrong picture that goes with this image. That is the definition of compassion, when you cannot bear the suffering of others. Great unalloyed devotees of the Lord are compassionate towards the fallen, and therefore they travel all over the world with a mission of bringing souls back to Godhead, back to home. A little comment on what does back to Godhead, back to home mean. It's consciousness, it's not a vimana descends and takes you there. And that may happen, it may not happen, but you can be back home, back to Godhead without a vimana by Krishna consciousness. Yes? Compassion is not exclusive to humans. So because it's all spirit souls who are parts and parcels of Krishna, they're also suffering. Here's a nice little cute example. I like graphics. So here's little kitty cat. And little kitty cat notices right next to the little kitty cat, there's a little puppy dog. And little puppy dog is intimidated. Maybe the cat's going to lash out at me and scratch me or something. But then the puppy dog gets up enough courage and cuddles up to the kitty cat. And then they're both very happy, falling asleep. Compassion. It's possible. The other thing happens too, but... Or, nice little example. A white... I don't think it's a dove, it looks like a pigeon, an albino pigeon. Little monkey they like each other. She doesn't look fearful, somehow. Or a giraffe and a little squirrel. No, squirrels aren't food for giraffes, but I don't know how many giraffes are licking the body of a squirrel like this. Or here's a mother hen, and she happens along with little chicks to be giving some shelter to a little furred creature, whatever the furred creature is, and giving protection to the furred creature like she's giving protection to her little chicks. Or street dog in India and the monkey, and they made friends. The dog looks happy, the monkey looks very comfortable. Or there's this certain kind of an animal called a meerkat, and they have this habit of sitting on their hind legs and standing up. So there's a cat, it's almost like it's posed, but standing in amongst the midst of meerkats and feeling right at home. But it doesn't always work like that. Sometimes it works like this. So the dog and the cat are fighting, and so that's, the misapplication of differences and fighting, quarreling, etc. because of differences. They have nothing to do with who we really are. Now, to speak about contemporary life and compassion it's hard to speak about it. It just can be done. It's hard to speak about it without making reference to Marshall Rosenberg. The main person I know about Marshall Rosenberg from is Bir Krishna Maharaj, as Sri Radhika knows about him through Bir Krishna Maharaj. But the little bit that I know, because I saw some videos, and he would display nonviolent communication by using the jackal and the giraffe. And he'd pick the giraffe because the heart of the giraffe is big. So the compassionate giraffe would speak giraffe talk, and the jackal would speak jackal talk. And so the jackal is the violent communicator, and the giraffe is the nonviolent communicator. So by using puppets, he would display and try to train and teach the principle of nonviolent communication. The giraffe speak instead of the jackal speak. And if you're interested, there's videos on these things, or if you're interested, you can learn. Sri Radhika's teaching this in a number of venues, and people are appreciating, because there's a Krishna conscious besides just the speech part. It's right in Bhagavad Gita, 17.15 Bhagavad Gita. Compassionate speech, or non-violent speech, or speech that's intended to uplift, not otherwise. So there's behaviors, speech being one of them, that are compassionate. And sometimes you say nothing instead of something. But when you say something, the something should be with the purpose of elevation. And then you have to know what elevation looks like. It requires knowledge to be a nonviolent communicator. It's not so prevalent now as it was during my college days and around that period of time. The Peace Corps or other venues of social activism to carry out efforts of nonviolent compassionate work. Again, without the spiritual conception, it's quite limited. And it's like, the image that I like is trying to move a shadow just by moving the shadow without the object that casts the shadow. When you move the object that casts the shadow moves. You touch spiritual reality, then the shadow can move. You don't touch the spiritual reality, it's cosmetic. It's just the shadow might look a little bit different. And the next moment it looks like the same shadow it was before again. By the influence, in other words, the influence of the modes of nature. And that's unfortunate. There are ways to bring about education and training of principles. I shared this many times in different circumstances. Some years ago, maybe 10, maybe 12 or so years ago, in India, there was a conference in Delhi amongst educators. And the educator conference was addressing the fact that they felt as educators were failing. So the keynote speaker, I wasn't there, but I was told by people who were there, the keynote speaker said, education in India today has 5 parts. Information, 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 no transformation. Because real education is meant to bring transformation. Information, okay, but transformation, please. And we're not doing well, because Kali Yuga is dragging things down and down and down. So we need to revamp, reevaluate, have to hit the reset button on what education in India today should be. And what's that transformation? It's change of heart. Because when the heart changes, then life changes. The experience of life, at least, the experience of life changes. That's my experience. The world that we live in is, Kali Yuga is still roaring on. Compassion in modern life. Modern life doesn't change because you become a nice devotee. It roars on. At the same time, one's heart can be changed, and the experience of the world around us can change. And when the world around you is experienced differently, it gives you options that you don't see when you're in this fearful condition or trembling, kampa position because of suffering in material existence. Know it or not, recognize it or not. You have freedom, and you have the means, the tools in your medicine kit to help people, the shalaka. They can remove the cataract of material existence without even necessarily going to, the school where you learn how to use this little instrument to remove cataract. You can just teach the Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita and exemplify it yourself. Achar and prachar, both. That's education and training. That's transformational. Information, no problem. There's information in Bhagavad Gita, there's information in the Bhagavatam. Information is not the problem. Lack of information is not exactly the problem either. It's the changing of heart that's missing. The removal of ignorance that's missing. The awakening of transcendental consciousness that's missing. And so education goes on, and education is more than just information or a set of behaviors. But the building of character. That's much more difficult than information. Many of you are parents, and some of you are children of parents, and you know what it's like, the difference between information and character. So it's not easy. And character traits we find according to Bhagavad Gita. According to Bhagavad Gita chapter 13, one of the 6 questions at the beginning of chapter 13 is, what is knowledge? Jnanam. And you look at the list, and the list is character traits. Gratitude, respect, and compassion. And how did Prabhupada transfer all of that to his followers, his disciples? By his example. He was genuinely Haribol. He was genuinely concerned with the well-being of others. Now this photograph has their bead bag on their left hand, so I think it's reversed. I'll fix that. I recognize the devotees. These are devotees in Germany. Bhakti Bhushan Swami is with that nice vest and as a younger brahmachari. By association with one who has the quality of compassion, opportunity is provided to develop a similar quality. Sangat kama. Sangat sanjayate kama sanjayate, O Arjuna. One develops desires like those with whom one associates. Kama, desire. Desire isn't the problem. It's misplaced desire or ignorance driving the principle of desire. So if we remove ignorance, that's nice. What's left? Nothing is left. It's the real thing is left. The covering is gone. The real thing is left. So one's heart must be open to this transformation to take place. And let's see if it works. There's a little video towards the end of this. Oh, we're not there yet. Okay. To develop good character, there has to be trust in the principle that good character is the way to live. I have confidence, like to get to anything that's desirable, you have to have confidence in that thing that's desirable to go for it. a nice example. Here's Bhakti Marg Swami compassionately giving teachings to somebody sitting there in the park, and a deep sense of genuine teacher-student relationship is required. It was nice while it lasted. And I like images, so here's an image of concentric circles. And when you, so here's a nice, when you drop something in a pool of water, the little splash comes out, and then concentric circles expand. So a visual, supposing we have in the middle of the floor here a pond of water, and everybody gets one pebble. So my dear devotee, place your pebble one at a time in the pond of water. And if you place your pebble in the pond of water, this is what you see. And if somebody places their pebble next to the one, but not in the same place, concentric circles expand just like this, but then they may clash. That's called material life. And then you say on the count of three, everybody else, throw your pebbles in the water. And that's material life, it's chaos. But there is such a thing that everyone can place their pebble, their swabhava, even it may be different than another person's swabhava, but their purpose is to fulfill Krishna's purpose. And when the fulfilling of Krishna's purpose is what you're after, then the concentric circles magnify one another and they expand even more. So this is the principle of the social culture of Vedic conception. Somebody lives here. Who lives here? Could you do something with the AC and make it a little cooler in here? Because there's a lot of people fanning themselves because it's... No, not the fan. The AC over there. The fan is noisy and they had it directed towards me and making my eyes dry, and so I asked him to shut it off. We're not in India. We have AC. You can't figure it out? You figured it out. It's on, but I don't hear the fan. $90 outside. You pack a lot of people in, it's more than 90 degrees.
Some problem.
There's a problem. No. AC decided to go on and quits for tonight. Okay. Yeah. Okay. We'll do what we can. Okay, back to the image on the screen. You see, there's the soul in the middle, the covering of the soul, mind, intelligence, and ego, and then the gross body. And those who are in the platform of the mode of goodness, it acts one way. Those in the mode of passion, it acts another way. Those in the mode of ignorance, it acts another way. And the idea of compassion is to extricate the soul altogether, not just by behavior modification, but by awakening of transcendental consciousness. Compassion is a trait of the mode of goodness. Here's a king who wanted to do an act of kindness for his citizens, so he underwent, you know the story? Who knows the story? What's the name of the king? King? Ranjit? Ranjit. Ranjit? Ranti Dev. King Ranti Dev. Good going. You like reading the Bhagavatam. King Ranti Dev was a very compassionate king. He underwent this extended fast. The benefit of his fast, the merit, the punya that would come to him for his austerity was to go to the citizens. Long fast. How many days? 30 days fast? More than 30 days? You don't remember? Anybody remember how long was Ranti Dev's fast? It was a long one. Maybe more than... Anyway, at the end of the fast, it was time to break the fast. So they brought him a royal feast. And when he sat down to break the royal feast, 3 persons came. One person came, a poor man, he gave him half what was on his royal plate. He was ready to take the other half. Then another person came that was, in the painting it's shown, there's a man with dogs, and my dogs are hungry. Can you give something from your plate? So he gave the other half and just kept a morsel. So those 2 persons that were testing his compassion were, as the painting shows, Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. And he passed the test. He was considering himself most fortunate to be able to give to others, because that was the principle that he lived by. It wasn't just doing austerities, it was for the benefit of others. So compassion doesn't always require you accept some inconvenience in order to give something to others. You forego your own pleasure for the purpose of another. Now this is a Vedic principle, because bounty may be considered in terms of having ample supply of food and rain and all those nice things that Vedic yajnas may be performed for. But the chanting of the holy name, for example, is not just for worldly things. It's giving spiritual well-being to others. And how to do that is going to be different, in different situation. A modern example, very classic example, is Mother Teresa and her orphanage program. The example in the Bhagavatam of Maharaj Parikshit, who was giving protection to the bull when he heard that in his kingdom one person dressed in royal attire but was behaving in a way like an unscrupulous person and breaking the legs of a bull with his club. There you see the club. And immediately, no questions asked, Maharaj Parikshit went to the spot, sword raised, was ready to chop the man to give protection. That person was the personality of Kali. The personality of Kali acts to cut the fundamental principles of Dharma. And it doesn't take too much to look around and see the fundamental principles of Dharma being on big-time display as means of livelihood for everybody, without getting graphic about it. Meat eating, intoxication, gambling is becoming very prevalent, and in sports and so many other things, just everyday things. And illicit sex, it's all over the place. The age of Kali is fast moving, and who's going to protect? So here's the section I did a little advance. Compassion can be misplaced. The classic example, here's the drowning person, and the drowning person, you want to feed the person who's drowning. The problem isn't that they're hungry, the problem is they're drowning. And how do you rescue the drowning person? Here's the kitty cat. It's not the actual kitty cat, but it's the story that I told you before. Misplaced compassion. And Arjuna exhibited misplaced compassion because his compassion was on the platform of the body, not on the platform of what Krishna wanted. That's how the direction of proper compassion can be exhibited. And even in very high stages of bhakti, even good intention can be misplaced. The example, Bharat Maharaj, and when Bharat Maharaj was in the forest, engaged in meditation upon the personality of Godhead, in the stage of Bhava Bhakti, he heard this loud roar of a lion, and there was a female deer by the shore of a river drinking water from the river, and when the pregnant female deer heard the roar of the lion, she jumped, and when she jumped, she drowned in the river. And when she jumped, there was a miscarriage. So the mother deer drowned, the little baby deer was rescued by Bharat Maharaj. And he had a lot of compassion because he's a king, giving protection to innocent persons needing protection. So he gave protection to the deer, and he went on and on and on and on, and gave so much attention to the deer, according to the narration, that he consciously, he didn't have to do this, but he consciously slackened and eventually desisted in his spiritual practices. And even when he was doing spiritual practices, his attention went to the deer. And when the deer was missing one fine day, he couldn't find the deer because he wanted to feed the deer, so he went looking for the deer, and misfortune came. He fell off a cliff looking for the deer in the dead of night. And he then became a deer, thinking of the deer at the time of death. So when he became a deer at the time of death, that was misfortune. And fortune came by Supersoul giving him remembrance of his previous life as a king. So he stayed in the forest as a deer, stayed in the vicinity of the sadhus and the ascetics that were living in the forest, and he would hear their conversations. He would take the remnants of food that from them, they would feed scraps to him from their prasadam, and he lived his life out as a deer. And the good story is he became a great person in his next life, Jad Bharat. Now, time is running. It's already, we started late, it's almost 8 o'clock. So I'm going to fast forward. So, we've been speaking a little bit about the modes of nature and how the modes of nature may influence, modes of nature influence everything for a conditioned soul. And so, for each of those modes of nature, there's a swabhava, Kshatriya bhava swajavajam, Vaishya karma swabhavajam, Brahma karma swabhavajam. There's swabhavas according to the modes of nature that one is influenced by. So here's a nice question. Is there a swabhava of the soul itself? It's a nice question. Is there an actual nature beyond the influence of the material quality of goodness? Is there such a thing as compassion on the platform of the soul? The answer is yes. Souls being compassionate to other souls. Doesn't mean you don't acknowledge or recognize the coverings and administer compassion to the soul according to the position of the covering, at least acknowledging it and helping the people to take the soul medicine, the spiritual medicine, appropriate for the covering. But there's a compassion on the soul, swabhava of the soul. The modern phrase is the self-compassion. I don't think they have a spiritual conception. I haven't gone into it, but generally, my perception at least, uninformed perception is it has everything to do with pampering yourself, or, mode of goodness kind of self-compassion. I probably shouldn't include that in this section. Narcissism, that's everything is about me, is self-compassion the same as narcissism? No, if it's on the spiritual platform. If it's on the spiritual platform, then it's not. We'll say it conversely. If it's not on the spiritual platform, it is. Obsession or primary focus on the body being the self. Not advisable. And here's the Vedic picture of the age of Kali. It's not a nice time, and there's destruction in this age of Kali, destruction of good character and good quality and good nature in people. So compassion deteriorates, and therefore, like Prabhupada gives the example, in a desert, a castor plant looks like a tree. You've heard that expression? Stick around, we'll train you up. You know what a castor plant is? No idea. It's castor oil comes from a castor plant. So a castor oil that's medicinal, and it does things. When you have constipation, you take castor oil. It comes from a castor plant, and it's a little plant. And one of the places castor plants grow very nicely is in arid or dry places. So in a desert, a castor plant looks like a tree, because there aren't trees. It's just like a little castor plant. So compassion, similarly, compassion in contemporary life is just a castor plant. It's not the real thing. It's a diminutive feature of even the reflection of a tree. Although it's in the family, it's a plant, but it's in the tree family. Compassion is diminished and misplaced. Raising individual or collective consciousness to the platform of the soul is most difficult. Finding those on that platform is most rare. So here's 3 little children, and there's somebody doing lots of construction is going on, building big somethings, where people can live happily in those big somethings and have nice accommodation instead of living in a hut. But that's not what happiness is. It's something else. Okay. What's the remedy? You know what the remedy is. Simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, one can become free from material bondage and be promoted to the transcendental kingdom. You don't just chant, but read the Bhagavatam, because you'll find out about that in the Bhagavatam. This is the 12th canto, where it's speaking a lot about the age of Kali. And so a big part of our lives is the Sankirtan movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, bringing awakening of consciousness of the self, and then what the rest of our life looks like is ideally on that same platform of joy and spiritual practice. And that's compassion in contemporary life. Doing things that everyday life carries us into, at the same time cultivating the real platform of compassion, the transcendental platform of Krishna's compassion, and our receiving it and being carriers or instruments to transmit it. That's our topic for this evening. Very different than yesterday, but the Vedic explanations are wonderful. inspirational, and they also give us insight into how we can do the same in our contemporary life. So tomorrow evening, guess what the topic's going to be? Compassion, but a different approach. So if you're curious, you can come tomorrow. If you think you've heard enough, you don't need to come tomorrow. Enough compassion, please. Let's have for some prasadam. Okay. Compliments to our community here in Naperville. Very explicit. Many communities, not all, many communities, when it's time for class to begin, attendance is thin. When I got here, it was packed. And in many places, the attendance starts to grow and grow and grow. And it's kind of like the Sunday program. The attendance will grow and grow because the core people, and then when it's time for prasadam, everybody's there. I wonder why. Prasadam is Krishna, right? Krishna is all attractive, and we want Krishna in the form of Krishna prasadam. But this hearing is also another prasadam, mercy of Krishna. So compliments to the community here. Eager to hear. So let's see if there's some discussion. Neela Manjari, how nice to see you. Here comes the microphone.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I really liked the presentation. However, on the last slide, I felt that there was a big jump, like from saying that, okay, these are all models of compassion, but then we are saying that the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is real self-compassion. So I was thinking, like, how do we bridge the gap? Because I just felt like we spoke about a lot of things, and then at the end we speak about that Mahamantra is actually self-compassion. Did you get my question?
I can hear you.
Did you understand my question?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
It's unusual. My capacity to understand is restricted.
No, what?
I understand your question. How do you bridge the gap?
Yeah, because
If we did a big jump, how do we go from where we are to where we want to go? That's your
yes,
question.
especially like for a new audience, if you're approaching a new audience, like they have all these different examples, but then we say that chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is real self-compassion. Then how do we make them understand that like what we are saying is real? How do we make it real for them?
Okay, I got your question. We plan, Krishna permitting, we plan to have a festival of the Holy Name here in Naperville. And in that festival of the Holy Name, the answer to your question is going to be expanded more, but I'll give a short answer. And the short answer is the process of devotional service is the process by which the gap can be bridged. So gradual. But so the process, this is a teaching of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. When emphasis is given to chanting, it implies, implicit, not explicit, are the other 8 processes that follow the chanting process. So when hearing about chanting, one should be thinking, and the other 8, or any one of the other 8, or combination of the other 8 processes of bhakti. But the spear has a tip, and then there's the shaft that follows behind the tip. So the bhakti process being compared to a spear, there's the tip of the spear. The tip of the spear is chanting. So to transition from where we are to this nice compassion place, it requires the process of bhakti that's awakened, starting with the chanting process. So that's where it starts. Let's take, for example, yesterday. You weren't with us yesterday, but you know, I'm sure, Prabhupada's arrival prayer in the Jaladuta in the Boston Harbor, and why have you brought me here, this ignorance and passion situation, how are people going to understand the message of Krishna? It's in pure goodness. But you brought me here. So what was his strategy? The how to get to, from where, when he saw the audience, he knew, and then he saw. Chanting. Some Bhagavad Gita, but chanting. In Prasadam, 3 things. And with that, because of the chanting, consciousness, 2 things, was cleansed, the covering was diminished, and the original consciousness was restored. 2 things. Awakening and removal of coverings, just through that sound vibration process. And it starts where it's really simple. And we heard yesterday, Sri Radhika was sharing that when Madhava came here for that weekend and he gave kirtan, she had a conversation with his wife, and it's true, so I'm just repeating because it's true. The melody was very simple when Prabhupada chanted. It was just one melody. But consciousness became restored because of the purity. So it's the chanting without offense from the lips of a pure devotee. So we just have to become pure devotees, and that's how to help a person understand, because then they'll have an experience. 2 things, coverings removed, original consciousness awakening. You know, Chetadarpana Marjanam, Bhavamahadavagni Nirvapanam, etc. in the language of Shikshastaka. But those 2 things. And then there's more subtle things. One has to become humble and tolerant and, you know, other characteristics. But when those other characteristics are added to the chanting, then the full effect of experience. So when you experience higher consciousness, or the consciousness of having received something different, you know, transcendentally sublime, someone can be covered, that's okay. It's the Kali Yuga, people are covered, it's okay. And so that the process removes the covering and awakens original consciousness gradually. So that's how. Now, in response to what you said, I stopped because, you know, I thought we kind of ran out of time. I thought I was talking too much. But there's a little video, and I'd like to see if the audio works with the video. Let me try. Just sit down. It has to do with the speaker system. Let's see if it works. Okay. Try. So another answer to your question, or a response, is Srila Prabhupada wanted an international organization that could carry forward his message and his mission, the mission of Krishna, the message of Lord Chaitanya, and the instrument of good association being good examples, carrying good consciousness, and associating with others in that achar and prachar-like manner is another very compelling way to help bring people from where they are to a better place. But without proper character and conduct, teaching may be very nice, but it's not going to be so effective. So a nice society that gives proper emphasis to the character of a Vaishnava and devotee care, etc., etc. And that's a whole big thing to speak about. I'll mention, one of my dear friends in the Hare Krishna movement is Tamahar Prabhu. Tamahar Prabhu, his wife has advanced stage of Parkinson's. She can't really do anything. She can't hold a book. She can't cook. She can't do anything. And he's looking after his wife, and people are coming to help them do the cooking and thising and thating. So he's been asked to take leadership role in a devotee care function, particularly in Alachua, not only, but particularly because Alachua seems to be like a retirement village. There's lots of senior citizens down there in Alachua, like in our back row back here. But don't go to Alachua, you can stay here. So people that are moving on to the final chapter of their life, and so he's being asked to do that. So, not just for older, but, devotee care. So, how to do that in the right way, the right thing in the right way, where it's not just palliative care, but it's everything. There's other, right in Chicago, Murari Chaitanya, who's been around for umpteen years, is, in great medical difficulty. And the group of devotees are huddling around to help him do what he was unable to do on his own, and was reluctant to ask for help, but he finally agreed to accept help. Anyway, so acting, it's not just when somebody's down and out, but in every day. That's a very, I find, very compelling reason to help people say yes, instead of sitting on the fence saying maybe or no. So good devotee care, good character, exhibition of character, and engaging others in the introductory process that cleanses and awakens. And that's how you bridge the gap. Huh?
The video was also
Yeah, nice. Right, responsive to your question. I didn't play it because I was concerned about time. Anyone else? Yes.
Thank you, Maharaj, for the very nice presentation and explanation. You had given the example of Bharat Maharaj,
Yeah.
and his compassion for the deer.
Yeah.
And I was curious, what was the difference between his attitude, his mindset, and Shivananda Sen, his mindset in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, his compassion, his concern for the dog? And I read that Bharat Maharaj was on the stage of Bhava Bhakti.
Yes.
So why would someone on that stage conscientiously after giving up the kingdom, just get attached to the deer? Why would he? Why was his intelligence not protected? We say that Krishna protects the intelligence of a devotee. What made him different from Shivananda?
Okay, those are two very different questions. Let's do the second one first because I've already forgot the first one. The difference is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his compassion with the dog, those of you that are newer, you don't know what that story is, but he helped the dog come to the platform of chanting Hare Krishna. He got the mercy of prasadam of Lord Chaitanya when Lord Chaitanya commanded him, chant Hare Krishna. And I don't know how you have it imitate a dog chanting Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna! And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu threw him some coconut pulp and he chant Hare Krishna. So, because he was awakening of his Krishna consciousness. And it's not that what Bharat Maharaj did in rescuing the life of the deer was the wrong thing to do. It was the right thing to do. But the wrong thing to do was he consciously chose, and this is how one can leave the Bhava Bhakti platform, he consciously chose to desist from his spiritual practices. So we have spiritual practices, and our spiritual practices shouldn't be slackened because of an increase of some important service that we have, unless it's health, and then health takes precedence. But in sequence, chanting, sadhana, seva, health, sadhana, seva. So in his case, it wasn't health, it was, he diminished his sadhana to the point where it just evaporated. So his consciousness had become weakened by slackening his spiritual practices deliberately. I mean, not so that he would lose his consciousness, but he just got so absorbed that took precedent. So don't let your important service take precedent over your core sadhana, please. Even if that service is important for others, for the well-being, the mission, and so forth and so on. Important message. Now, that's the second question, one way of addressing the second question. Now you're back to your first question. Say it again.
I was also curious that, Shivananda Sen and Bharat Maharaj were both devotees. So why in the case of Bharat Maharaj, being such a mature devotee, I mean, such a high stage of Bhava Bhakti, how is it that he so, made the wrong decision? His intelligence just slipped. We read that Krishna says he protects the intelligence of a devotee.
Well, there's a qualifier, and that's if one wants to be protected. Nice question. It's a subtle question I've never been asked before. I've been asked lots of those kinds of questions. Yam tamaha. We don't know the prompts that Super Soul was giving from within the heart of Bharat Maharaj as he was slipping. Presumably he got prompts from Super Soul, and he chose otherwise. So it's not that Super Soul will take away your free will choices. So presumably, because explicitly it does say he chose to slacken and subsist in his spiritual practices. So if you turn your back to the sun, you're going to see shadow. So if there's a conscious choice, Krishna doesn't interfere with that conscious choice. Even you're Bharat Maharaj and you're in the Bhava Bhakti stage. He may give prompts, but if you say no, he doesn't interfere. Are we done? It's late. There's something over here. Okay.
Maharaj, I've heard you describe several times, and I'm surprised you didn't bring it up, that Jiva Goswami comments in his Sandarbhas how Bharat Maharaj, in his previous life, due to an offense, made that conscious decision. And that was the root of that choice, even in the Bhava stage.
Okay. Thank you. Whether there was a prompt or not a prompt, he made a choice. That's the essence. So, what I'll do tonight, or tomorrow morning, I'll do it tomorrow morning, I'll reference that passage from Tattva Sandarbha. Tattva Sandarbha?
No, it's Bhakti Sandarbha.
Bhakti Sandarbha. Okay. I'll see if I can find the reference. And if I find the reference, I'll send it to you, and you can circulate it to others. But I'm not recalling, honestly, I'm not recalling that reference at the moment. Okay. Just now I'm being exposed as having a bad memory. Thank you very much. Where do you get to be a senior citizen? Right? In fact, you better send me a text message to remind me to look at Okay, Srila Prabhupada ki.